Hello, everyone, and welcome to the premiere of Season 4 of The Hive. We have tonight for you a fireside chat with GX Dolar, Sam Diamond, and me, your host, M, for tonight. The Hive is brought to you by Esports College and Career Pathways, where our mission is to expand access to opportunities and provide a clear path forward for young adults to reach their potential. We focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we want to extend a huge thank you to our sponsors, the Game Hers, ESTV, and NFL alumni. I am your host, M, and it's great to be back for another year. Tonight, we kick off another great season filled with hot topics, amazing guests, and bringing back a game night as well. As the gaming industry is exploding right now, it is an amazing time to be in games, and there is so much to talk about right now as it concerns esports, audio design, everything under the sun, and when it comes to a console, a controller, or a mouse and keyboard, or even your mobile phone. You know, mobile is huge right now. I am joined tonight by my guests, Sam Diamond and DX Dolar. I hope that you both are doing good tonight. How are you?
Fantastic. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. I'm doing fantastic too. I'm glad to see both of you back. It's amazing to have y'all.
Yeah, it's fresh takes, guys. Happy New Year. I've shed 2022. I'm embracing my spicy flavor. So you know what? I'm a flaming hot Cheeto now. I'm not a regular Cheeto.
You know, the new you, new year. Congratulations.
Thank
In terms
you.
of flavor, I think I'm pretty much the same as I was in like 2019. I feel like I'm missing something in between then and now. Not quite sure where it is or what happened to it or what flavor it is, but I feel you on trying to, embrace new aspects of yourself. So, welcome both of you. It's great to have you here.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great to see you back. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, everyone. So tonight's topic is one for the books or one for the VODs, as we have it here at Twitch. Tonight, we're going to be chatting a little bit about the Activision Blizzard King merger with Microsoft and what that means for gamers, investors, and more who are part of this industry. So, for a little bit of background information for those of you who might need some pro industry tips, or like myself, who read like 6 articles in the span of 30 minutes to try and understand what was going on before tonight. In 2008, Activision Blizzard King merged with King, who is a mobile developer, for an estimated acquisition of $18.9 billion. In context of money, that is a lot. And then in 2022, Activision Blizzard King, which they are now called ABK, I thought it was Activision Blizzard kinda because they just couldn't decide what to rename themselves. That's legitimately what I thought the case before. But no,
right.
Activision Blizzard King has now been bought for $68.7 billion by Microsoft, which is even more than the previous more money. So I hope that all of you are ready for tonight. This is going to be a really great segment where we're all going to have very strong opinions about a topic we have absolutely no say over. So to kick things off, we're going to go ahead and open up with our first question, which is purely for opinion's sake. What do you all think about the U.S. government allowing the merger to happen? Do you think it's going to be a yay, a nay? We're going to be stalled for another couple of years?
I have a long take, Sam, so please, by all means, go
Okay,
first.
I'll go the short take. They will. Special interests will get in the way. It's no different than Activision Blizzard when they went together along with King. King was probably the biggest question because they were mobile, and whether or not they'd allow that. They actually, if I remember correctly, King actually surpassed a lot of the funding, or not funding, but the price, the stock which they hold, and the original holders of Activision Blizzard were more than welcome to Activision and Blizzard were more than welcome to throw them in on top of everything else. So I think it's gonna be a long time of lobbying, but it will happen, and there's no way to stop Microsoft when they want something. So here you go. I'm passing the baton.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think in essence, I think that's the plain as day statement. Like when you're really looking at the stuff that kind of makes it through legislation, it's kind of noted that if you have the money to get lobbyists and lobbyists are making sure that the people that are behind the merger that are going to benefit from the merger have the ear of the actual legislators. And it's not just the legislators too, it's the exploration committees that are actually researching these things. But the problem I have, because I know that this is going to go through, is who is on these exploration committees. If you look at the House of Representatives and you look at the relative age at the lower bracket of all of our Congress people, we have Madison Cawthorn from North Carolina at 25. We have AOC at 31 from New York. And then from up there, the bell curve goes, and you're looking at a median age of like 60 years old. Somebody tell me who is going to be heading this committee upon exploration of one of the most significant and financially impactful mergers in terms of the gaming industry. Oh, people who have absolutely no idea what the gaming community is and have dismissed it, calling it the source of violence, not looking at any academic research. And they're the ones who are our legislators, and they're the ones who are vetting this process, and they're the ones who are affecting how our community is going to be like attacked from all different angles in terms of monetizing gaming. King is a mobile gaming company, so it's going to benefit for the market. So they're going to get approved. Microsoft has all the clout. What is this going to create? I think it's going to create a big soggy wet blanket when it gets passed, and it's going to be something that we're all going to be under and try to work beneath, because something like this got approved without actually understanding the economics and the cultural impact of gaming beyond like games are fun and entertaining. I'm like, it's a real industry, it's a real job, it has significant cultural impact. It's not Avatar 2. Gaming actually affects people. Like, it's really important that someone that actually knows the industry is has the ear of legislation. So it's gonna pass, and I think the most ignorant way possible. And I'm not sorry, because where is the record showing me that the exploration communities for these video game the things that affect video gaming industry? There's no record. The people just, it's all special interest stuff. So spicy me, I agree.
Can I add a little asterisk? So, for those who don't know, in our current political climate here in the United States, we are actually not able to secure the House in the sense of a speaker, whatever party you want to be in and whatever your political opinion. This will definitely delay our process of getting this done.
Yeah.
And regardless of whoever is Speaker of the House, if Speaker of the House gets done, this delay continues to push us in a direction where we won't get an answer, because they will have to have a special interest committee to look into this. So, just for note, we may not know for a while.
Yeah, it's like a boo. It's like a sad. It's like, yeah, it's gonna happen. Now we're gonna have to all kind of adjust ourselves, because it's sticky. Big money in something that, especially what we're talking about, scholastic and career opportunities for esports. Big money has the ability to dictate which games go into high schools, which games get codified into like whatever it's your state lettering system. Like we have CAF in California. And I say big money as like it is a general statement, as large corporations that have interests and titles and products are going to be able to determine those things, because you can't have a mom and pop indie studio do these things at the scale of at a national level. So there's only a certain option, and it's the big money. And there's agendas like King Gaming. It is gaming. I'm not going to be a gatekeeper. It's a game. It's gaming. It is a different type of gaming, and it's a different type of business model it's a different type of model that fostered that type of thing than what fostered our esports community. It's different. Sorry.
No, one thing I don't want to be like the one little fizzy like voice of hope that's like meek and meager and being like,
Please do.
positivity. But I'm very curious about how the Federal Trade I want to say, I almost said community. I'm just like, that's wrong. But the FTC does have some teeth. Like out of all, at least like any federal bureau, if anyone has teeth, it's the FTC. And I think we really saw this come out, at least to some degree, with the most recent Fortnite Epic Games lawsuit that passed recently. So even though we know that like Microsoft is like it's like a 99.999 like 9 repeating chance of Microsoft is going to go through with the Activision Blizzard merger. However, it's definitely likely to say that they will most like definitely have to make some acquisitions and like concessions here. They are going to be able to get everything that they want, at least not in some sort of like terrible legal sense of being able to skirt around all of these laws. People are really paying attention to this merger, especially as ABK has been in the news a lot lately. People who are, gamers, members of communities do have some rights when it comes to be able to, potentially file their own personal lawsuits with different organizations if they feel like it is blocking their right to be able to gain access to certain things that impact their personal revenue, information, and a lot of other things that can either continue to impede this process or have to force Microsoft to make some careful decisions as they continue to get closer to this merger going through. So And I really do hope, because it's a topic that I think we're going to discuss a little bit later. But I also hope how we've seen other acquisitions go forth for other forms of media, like film, television, broadcasting, and how it has definitely affected our entertainment media landscape right now. Like, good God, there's like what, 3 options for cable when there used to be like, I didn't exist in the 1980s yet, so I can't say for sure. But like, there used to be a lot more options in terms of how people were able to bring entertainment into their home, and it has become very much a pipeline now. So I hope that as we begin to, form a lot of brand new laws and statutes around games and how those businesses operate, we learn something from how media has changed a lot for broadcasting, TV, and film, because it has massively and drastically, I would say a little bit for the worse, changed a lot because there just wasn't that oversight. People didn't really know what to do because it was such a new medium. And while games are new, we do have something that we can learn from.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the one thing I have to say that regardless if it, let's say it doesn't go through, the next big step, and we didn't really have in this script, is there's a possibility Microsoft, as a reaction to this, if they don't get shot down and say you can't have it, they just say, as of right now, the commission won't allow a merger. They could do a hostile takeover if they wanted to. Microsoft does have enough in the market, and they do have enough liquidity to acquire ABK if they wanted to. And that's something that, like, regardless, and this kind of feeds back to the other question that we wanted, like, the next one is like, Chile may have approved this, the UK may be looking at allowing it, but the US, regardless of how we work, like, we allow hostile takeovers if we want it. So, that's one thing to just like put a little like side piece to it, is just we like our industry and making sure they're in our government access and control, but you can still get
And this is
hostile
still
takeovers.
capitalism. Don't forget, kids.
Yep. It's live, it's messy, it's hot, it's real. Capitalism? Question mark?
All right, well, let's go ahead and shift into our next question, which brings it back a little bit towards us as a community. But how do you think that this merger, whether or not it goes through, so whether that's a yes or a no, will affect gamers as they play?
I think to answer this question for me, I have to like quickly paint a picture about like the insidious nature of decisions like this. Like big mergers, when you're talking about like in terms of determining the culture of anything. I used to work in the craft beer industry. I worked for a large chain. Love beer. I love chemistry. I'm an alchemist by my Dungeons and Dragons class. Whatever. Uh, um, but at a certain point, there was a big movement around craft beer, like which is like the equivalent of independent gaming studios, right? But I worked for a brewery that went through the craft phase into like a wide distribution. So I saw what it looks like when you change from the inside, when you're going and creating a boutique experience for your community, and you're making a name for yourself, and because you're operating within a certain scale, like because you're only operating within this one county. This, by making a big merger like this, it doesn't push. I'm not going to ascribe to the idea that it pushes out independent game developers. No, that's not the case. But they become a very loud and large proportion of the majority of the conversation, especially when it comes to what games are going to be officiated within the esports landscape. So as anything grows, you're gonna lose some of what you originally were. And at the heart of this, Active Blizzard, at the heart, we all know, like, Blizzard was a gamer first company, a gamer first studio. And there's a lot of discourse right now on whether or not that's true. Look me in the eye, anyone from Blizzard. Is that true? Is this a gamer company first? Because that's what you used to be. And that, in a large respect, begins to change. Is Owl going to be the only FPS that's going to be approved throughout the pipeline? Yeah. How is this going to affect other FPS titles like Valorant or other things coming up? How is this going to affect? And by choosing which of those titles, one of them is like, whether it's Blizzard or Riot or anything, that whether or not that's going to create an entire block of people that grew up playing X game from the ages of 11 to 18, and in some of the most formative years, that's a conversation that says like, well, they only will have access to this, and people play the easiest game that's in front of, well, most accessible game to that's in front of them. So that's going to be the conversation. Like, if this gets through, I have almost no doubt that they're going to throw a tidal wave of money at the Scholastic market to make sure that Owl League or Owl becomes the premier Scholastic, because that's how you create our sports ecosystem. It's training to make sure that everyone has a certain game for a long period of time. They graduate from university and they're in real life. It's not real. Then you're still playing a certain game, and that is a huge thing. You're buying the lifeline of the timeline of a consumer, and that's like Disney does it. Like, they buy a timeline of a consumer. It's a smart play, but that means there's a lot of messaging consolidated from very few sources. And as you noted, Em, if it's a pipeline, that means that's the discussion, and that's dangerous. I think that too much of that, especially in a relatively unregulated space like ours right now in terms of community. Ugh, sorry, like it's too many question marks. It's so many question marks.
Yeah, I think we're very much in uncharted territory in that, as a gamer, or from a sense of someone who maybe doesn't necessarily prefer that nomenclature, as a player of games,
Yeah.
having the knowledge of being able to know legislation and law and business practices, and then having to consolidate that information that you already maybe do or do not have in the context of a relatively new industry, that is now combining with an older industry. So that's also very strange territory. Microsoft has been around since probably longer than some of us have been alive, and now they're trying to enter a space where people are probably not going to be as familiar with that brand, how they operate, how they work. So it's sort of like how, it's a good example of this, it's like when, I want to say, HBO Max and Warner Brothers kind of combined, and that was an event, and then they merged with Discovery, and that's been a terrible experience as someone who just wants to watch HBO Max, because it has to change how, like you mentioned, they present their information, what they want to be in the forefront of a person's attention span, which will then get them the revenue that they both need and desire. And I won't bash them. She's like, you're a company, you're just doing what a company does. They're there. But for people who are looking to enter the space as either like a game developer, someone who reports on game news, someone who wants to enter the esports scene, whether as a player or someone who helps with the production side of things, you're going to have to really think about, your future career opportunities and how this is going to affect things. Because for how different games have different engine systems. Since Microsoft is about to potentially take over a huge chunk of the game scene, are they going to want their engines that they use to develop these games be the industry standard soon? Right now, we really see a lot of it being Unity and Unreal Engine are the things recommended for people to learn how to play. And as of now, no one really has access to the Activision Blizzard game engines. They very much keep that under lock and key. How are we going to see this affect people who want to be developers soon? Are they going to release that information and make it somewhat public that anyone can use? And how will that affect, their own marketplace? I completely derailed the question, and I realize that now. I'm sorry, but that's just something that occurred to me.
I think that's great though, is because something like this does, the ramifications look like a frond of leaves. It's not just a linear thing. There's going to be so many branches.
Yeah, and I wanted to actually take both of your points and really I don't think this is now that I'm thinking about it, it's not a bad thing, but it's a consolidation of the industry. This happens in esports every 2 years where they consolidate and then they explode again. They consolidate and they explode again. I think what we're seeing now is that reconsolidation of the industry. And at this point, to take a special note to what DX was saying, when it came to esports, I think I had all these questions out, and I'm glad that you had actually hit on it perfectly. I think this secures Microsoft back into the industry if they properly take some of the people who, a couple of my friends and colleagues they used to work with in Overwatch. They're doing a great job at rebuilding Blizzard's once truly great esports scene. And whether or not Microsoft tramples that out and says we'll do our own thing, it's up to them. But I think at this point we're really looking at this industry shift and swing to I think hopefully what you were saying before, DX, where we're looking for a pipeline, like properly set pipeline, not one that is abusive. I mean, we pretty much can guarantee, not to sound too negative, can guarantee it's probably abusive in some sets. but hopefully they'll do better. I think that's the best way to say it. I don't think Owl will be the same again. I think CDL will get huge. I think that's Microsoft's big pull. They haven't had a good FPS in a while. I mean, the biggest thing that they tried to do is Halo, and look how up and down. It's anemic at this point. It doesn't know what it wants. And Gears of War was huge. And Latin America, I gotta applaud them. They are the people carrying Gears of War.
Yeah.
No matter how violent it is an amazing scene to watch, and they are dedicated fans. And Microsoft just says, "Yeah, go do it." They take their hands off and they let people do what they need to do in that esports industry. If Blizzard can get Microsoft money, put the people in the right positions, and just let them go crazy like they did with Gears of War, I think we could see the numbers of old Owl and current Call of Duty just growing. It's just a matter of getting to that point and allowing the industry to grow and let them do the education end, which Microsoft has been excellent at doing. It's a cult following now. If you talk to any educator, they want Microsoft to work with them. So
That's enthusiastic for me to hear, because I can't unfixate on Activision Blizzard King. They're giving an entity that is that sophisticated and complex, that has such a variegated history. Like when you're talking about the future, how does it actually going to affect the future too? Very recently, a good friend of mine put a LinkedIn post in direct response talking about there's a new legislation about transparency about how much people are making in the industry. So Riot, Bungie Games, and Blizzard have fully accessible. You can see what their same title, same level, how much they're getting paid, and what they're required. Let's see what the order is. Riot Games at number 1, Bungie, luckily that's going in the right direction, but Blizzard is number 2 for, I believe, a senior project manager at Blizzard, and this is publicly available information, so I'm not throwing shade. He's making $80,000 a year. That's really good pay. But let's think about it in comparison to every other person. It's the lowest on the totem pole in a city that has the highest cost of living in comparison. So you're creating, if you're creating more jobs in that sector, and you're suffusing a company that's paying and regulating the value, is stating a value, it's good that it's transparent. Now everyone knows who's is what's fair for the rate. But that's a lot of pressure if they're the ones that potentially get these contracts and they have a lot of jobs. If their standards are there, you're inflating a system that's going to make it harder for other people that are in the industry that are professionals. It's not going to be impossible, but it just makes it even more difficult to say I'm worth more than this. My experience is worth more than this, especially in this industry. So if you're starting with a company whose practices are already the least amenable and the least enticing for industry participants, what's precedent are we setting? What are we saying? We're going to suffuse this one because they have the highest profit margin. Not that they're churning out the best talent. They have amazing talent. Blizzard has never had a lack of talent. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is their business practices, I don't think, are best for the industry. So I hope Microsoft goes in there and has something to contribute that I'm not seeing. I would love to be so very wrong in all the best ways.
That actually, now that you bring up I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, now we're at this point where it's just no, you first, no, you, and then we're gonna go back and forth for 5 minutes. But I'm gonna self-impose my will here. It's interesting that you bring up the point about the pay transparency now being a thing, and it makes me wonder if that could contribute to the reason why the UK has recently decided to stall a bit more. For context, if you want good gaming news and good gaming takes, look at UK news media. They are very good about being active about industry standards, industry practices, what's most popular, how things are affecting different markets. And I actually read a piece today about how yes, we are doing cool things in gaming. Yes, we have high profits of margin. But within that same article, they were talking about, yes, these things are happening, but this isn't sustainable. And this was the key point of the article. It's just profits can come in and, you can make cool things and get all these awards. But if you aren't, fostering an environment where, and I think this is also an issue that we really see here in the US, is that, people want to work in games. I think that, it's interesting. You can have a lot of different backgrounds, but and I think this is a USA endemic thing as well. We have such a high bar for what it takes to get into working at a games industry. And this is doubly true for a AAA studio. you could have someone who be like entry level, like project manager, and then you want them to have like released 2 other AAA titles and
Yeah.
have 5 years of work
It's like,
experience. And it's just like this
yeah.
math is not working here. I'm not great at math, but this isn't adding up. So I really hope that when the Mac, and I say when because let's be honest, when the Microsoft acquisition happens, we see potentially some changes in the business practices that will allow them to one, create a better work environment, because that absolutely happens. I think regardless of whether or not what titles being pushed, and what happens is that if the work environment is not fixed at ABK, they aren't looking too great over the next couple of years. Probably even the next year, just because not only has their reputation tanked significantly over the past 2 years alone, but also they've been having other issues as well that have stemmed just from toxic workplace environment, other workplace issues as well. This isn't a negative thing, but I do hope that with Microsoft acquisition, they're still able to unionize, because I'm just like, yeah, unions. So just with the way that Microsoft coming in, I hope that the pros of Microsoft and the positive and just the way that they function, they not maybe force is the wrong word, but I hope that rather than just them simply having the acquisition, putting people in charge and just being like, go forth and make art that we can then sell. We also see a little bit of oversight in how their workplace definitely needs to change. And I hope that that sets a better industry standard as well.
Yeah, I think you're completely correct. And I think what Microsoft has done a fantastic job in doing back in 2019 when I was applying for a couple jobs, Microsoft did an excellent job when I went in and they gave me an interview, one interview, like it was a 500 applicants, 600 applicants going for the first round, and extremely polite and just saying, "Hey, you aren't it." Like, but the availability of positions across the United States internationally, it is so unique. You could be in Kansas City, you could be in Missouri, or well, Kansas City, Missouri. You could be in Kentucky, you can be on all these random places because Microsoft has such a wide reach. I think Blizzard has made a huge mistake in settling down in LA. They got the big star syndrome and thinking they needed to be in LA. They need everyone to be there. Um, that causes a huge infrastructure problem with being able to pay your employees a proper amount. If you look at the industry standard, if everyone says it's 80,000 and everyone agrees it's 80,000 and it's not sustainable in LA, maybe it's time to relocate how you're building the industry. You could have the head office there, but if your devs can't live there, you need to move some offices away. Sorry, like big business, it looks cool that everyone's in LA and everyone's in an office, but if someone's living in a studio apartment with 3 other people, that's not sustainable. I'm sorry. It's the same thing with the esports industry. I'm sorry. FaZe Clan is the only one that's going to live in LA substantially without taking venture capital loans that they can't pay back. 100 Thieves has cut people back. The Valiant have cut people back. You've had the Philadelphia Fusion move from Philadelphia to Seoul, South Korea. There's reasons why these are happening. It's because the industry of esports is just not working. The salaries aren't working. And Microsoft has the right idea of expanding rather than contracting on people and letting them work and live remotely, or creating studios around them or infrastructure around them that are cheaper. Epic Games is a great example. They're in Idaho. They have a huge facility in Idaho. The cost of living's not that bad there. It's getting
I
worse,
see.
but it's not bad. And I think esports kind of needs to go in that direction because the starting salary for people who are getting out of college is not fantastic. And there's an exorbitantly high amount of student debt, and it's continuing to grow. And we need to start like, if the industry says yes, it's 80K flat for a beginning position, we can't change the industry right there, but we can force them to say we need to relocate them to Arizona or Nevada and build up industry there, because some of those states, I'm gonna be real, they're not really doing too well. Some of those states they're not growing. They're kind of just faltering. Um, and I think that just creates a little bit better of an environment, and it helps esports be a little bit more diverse. I'm not saying, FaZe needs to be FaZe LA or the Thieves need to move to Nevada, but there needs to be a situation where we're giving people an opportunity not to go in debt. And even if they are like contract employees, like a lot of us are in the industry, we can sustain. We don't need to live out of a house with 5 other people or with our family. We can kind of create a career around it. So I could see our industry changing completely. I could see the Call of Duty League
Mhm.
staying and Owl being deleted within the next 2 years.
Oh, I really hope not, because Owl was like like purely sentimental reasons. Owl was like my first actual like invested esports. Like I didn't care until
I
Overwatch
I
League.
coached
Yeah.
there for 4 years. I know. I started from the very bottom, and I was teaching some of the. I got out people into Owl in the sense of like where I started them off at.
Mhm.
It wasn't me directly getting them into Owl. I wasn't sending them directly to, but I've had people ask me, "Hey, is this player worth it?" And yeah, like I love the game. I love the players. There's not a single player that I've worked with that I haven't loved and like been like a big brother, a father figure to, um, and like supported. It's just sad.
Mhm.
Like I can just see Microsoft saying this isn't worth it because it really isn't. The numbers for Blizzard in Owl are not good. Call of Duty's been doing fine from what I understand. I'm not sure what you've heard, DX. I'm pretty sure that you have a better idea.
I'm thinking of it from a perspective of like knowing the conversations I've had with like district decision makers, directors of technology. Like, if I'm looking at Microsoft and the decision making, I don't see it feasible that CDL will completely replace OWL. I think there's definitely could be an emphasis that's placed on in terms of collegiate, post collegiate openings and market and like creating a scene around that. But the only games that were kind of even remotely viable for introducing to the educational like environment between the ages of like 13 to 18, uh Overwatch was right at the cusp of what's okay. Counter-Strike was a no. Definitely Gears of War, no. Like even like so it becomes so if Microsoft were to make a decision, the process what I would be like, one could be more popular because it's showing more popular and passion, but one is not as nationally distributable because the content of that game. So
Mm.
I don't think Overwatch is going to go away. The league, and it's Blizzard's a lot of millions of dollars, and those people do not like it watching it evaporate. No one likes watching money evaporate, but I think it's going to be very interesting to watch. I think that's going to be a hot topic for us to be able to watch as this kind of moves forward. Seeing how that pipe like the gaming pipeline is like if Overwatch is going to feed from high school to college to a professional league, and you're right though too. Like these leagues are not they're bringing in viewership numbers, but people are miscalculating the value of viewership numbers so much. Like in the actual conversion ratio of what viewership is to like monetary and spending power. I worked in marketing, guys. I know what people demand, and sometimes the only people that can afford our content streamers are like PG&E and like Tampax and like big brands, and they're the only ones that can afford a Valkyrie or a Poke or or a Hasanabi. They're the only ones that can afford them. Like they have to be big companies, and that makes a difference too. Like that controls another part of the media. If Overwatch League becomes a thing, then they're gonna be the only people with money to be able to communicate to the streamers who are once again in the faces of all of like they're what's being consumed. I don't want to be all doom and gloomy, and I feel bad. I'm
Well, I
sorry,
think you bring up a
everyone.
very important point on how they need to turn their approach to better monetization efforts.
Hmm.
Because, to be perfectly honest, the concept of having different teams who represent their like players within the league is on paper it's smart. It's a savvy move. It creates that good old spirited competition. In terms of actual like people wanting to spend money on like merchandising, um, I'm blanking on other things people spend their
Attendance on
money on. Yes,
experiences, yeah.
experiences like that. You can't just slap a city on people who you don't have any necessarily like interest and investment in their career
Bingo. Yeah.
and then be like, this is New York. I'm from the South. I don't care about New York City. That is some sort of like weird hypothetical thing that just sort of like sits on the Hudson River, if that's even the correct river for me.
It
And
is.
then like the closest thing to me right now is Atlanta. I also don't care about Atlanta. I don't have any sort of investment or history with the players who play in Atlanta. And I really don't, sorry, this may be controversial, I don't like DeFran. That nuked my interest in
Mm.
Atlanta. I immediately like lost all interest and I didn't have any sort of reason to try and attach myself to any of these other teams in the leagues because they don't have that sort of interpersonal branding that you really need for people to one want to pay attention to what is going on within the different leagues and the dynamics that they have between the players and the teams and how that affects your long-term personal and monetary investment in a team. And then two, they picked a lot of cities where yes, they're big name large cities, but like you mentioned earlier, Sam, living in those cities is expensive. You cannot be based in a lot of these cities. And if you cannot form a community around the cities that you're in and have way for players to have access and come out and physically support their teams and be able to engage with them in that manner, it's also not going to last. You're not going to be able to have that monetary revenue. So I'd be interested to see if some teams get renamed, they get shifted around. I would personally love to see us a team based in Charlotte because that's the closest thing to me. And it's also a mid-sized city that has fiber internet. So it would be a smart move for them to live. The cost of living isn't as high as basically every other city everywhere. And it's in a place that has fairly stable internet and it's close to a research triangle. So that would be great for a lot of reasons in terms of, fairly high traffic. I'm pitching Charlotte, and that's not the point.
Well, let me tell you, they're there. They are there. Space Station Gaming is in Charlotte. They have a headquarters there. Dark Zero is in North Carolina. There are esports headquarters in North Carolina. They're because they made a law or some sort of subsidy to bring them there. And why are they not doing it? And why are they not a part of the community and making an emphasis towards it? Because they want to be a global gaming infrastructure. Some esports teams can do that. FaZe Clan can. NRG is known in San Francisco because they became the Shock, and they're kind of stuck now doing that. They're known as Shaq's team. Wherever Shaq is and wherever San Francisco is, they're known as that. They're stuck. But New York Excelsiors did a great job of pipelining people there because they had New York Venom. They can't tell me otherwise. Other than Bare Hands, I support Bare Hands. He's one of my mentors way back when. He made sure that things worked in New York the way they did and supported the Venom squad as much as he could from the background. I don't know if it was publicly known or not how much he worked with them, but that's what made it awesome. But you have some random teams in Texas and wherever. You need to work in the community. These are not god gamers. The difference between an NFL player and an esports player is the NFL player puts in hours a day working out, and they are physically different and they act different. They are emotionally different than someone who just plays pickup football or basketball or baseball. They are built different. I hate to say it like that, but they are. Esports players, I watch it and I've hit shots like pro players before. There is nothing unique. If you go in the community, they look no different. I mean, there's been moments I've seen on streamers recently where they just they'll get passed by other people and they won't get noticed because they are just normal. There's nothing unique about them in the sense other than they're really good at the game that they're doing. There's nothing uniquely defining about, they have a longer finger, they can click faster. There's nothing unique you can say, hey, that's a gamer right there, unless they wear their jersey, unless you get into the community and support it. If you're not in Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, if you're not in those cities supporting the people and creating content or doing things or supporting it like the Venom in New York, you're going to fail. That's it. And Microsoft, I think they know how to do that. They did it with Gears of War. I know we kept on saying that, you told me it won't work because it's violent. But if Overwatch does that and really actually puts an emphasis on it and allows the relocations that need to happen, and then force them to actually do community efforts, they'll actually get an audience. That's the part about it. But I don't know how much they'll do it. That's the other part.
I'd be very interested to see if we see a lot of revamped efforts for content creators who might be from these similar spaces for relocation as well. Because unless you have the training and the actual desire to engage with community efforts, you can't pretend that. You cannot act that. You have to genuinely be invested. So I think that with this merger, just to touch a little bit more on esports, we're gonna have to see a lot of people who have these esports personas start to get this marketing training, have to actually start working on branding. You gotta learn how to have some interpersonal skills, just a little bit. You don't have to be great. You can still be awkward. That's fine. But you need to know how to represent yourself to be able to get the sort of scope and lens and attention that you need to one further your own career and then support the the gaming organizations and your team like you need to because they do this for pretty much every other athlete.
It'd be really interesting if someone in the Microsoft organization that had that wherewithal to treat the esports, their esports ecosystems with proper attention. One thing that I've noticed really blatantly is who I don't want to. No, I don't know. I'm trying to find. Okay, so
Just
the
do like an
selling
acronym and blink a lot, and we'll
yeah
just nod.
Yeah.
the selling of the esports phenomenon has been done in one way. Why do I know this? I've been doing the selling. I'm one of the people. And in the beginning, it was one thing about the numbers and the viewership, because that's what we had to go on. Like, oh, look, this is trending correctly. Like, this is actually like people are viewing, are growing. It's a global thing, lots of potential. But the conversation didn't change enough in terms of like, now that there's all these people in here and like we know that there's like a buzz, like who is actually treating this like the industry that it actually is my hope. Does Microsoft know that they're what they're getting into? Like, you're creating the WWE is a phenomenal organization as an entertainment spectacle. It is not it is not a betting hub gaming system. Esports is somewhere in between, and where esports, the community is having a failure to connect to audiences, is the stories are not great. There's a few stories, few and far between, but the people that are actually owning the teams and these marketing people are selling it as marketing to sell products. Real sports marketing is selling the story of Michael Jordan so you get Jumpman. Real story, it's about selling the story and getting people connected to Serena Williams and her legacy of her art. Like, that's how people stay connected to the thing. Microsoft maybe has the right type of knowledge to be able to see it as an industry, so I hope that they can bring like an NFL commissionership to it. Like, I don't know, it's like speculating wildly, whatever. That's what we do here, right? But like, if it were to happen, that's what I would love to see. That a larger entity that understands what this is, listens to the right people and starts developing these esports markets so that they have sustainability and have profitability. They are profit centers, and they're not just pro factories like a puppy mill, just cranking out a pro, getting a title. And we have an actual shot to change a model and to be and because we literally see that in NCAA, like in other Division 1 sports and university. So I'm hoping that that's type of insight, that an opportunity that it can create, because it is part of a larger organization that is more storied and does have a wider understanding of how all this messy stuff works. I'm just looking for positives now. I'm going like, well, it's a new day. There's a big organization. What can a big organization do with lots of power that's actually beneficial to the people? Research and knowledge, wisdom. That hopefully they're there. I feel like I want to be nice to Microsoft now, because I actually do remember, not that not nice, but like, maybe. Uh, I found that when I was working in education, a lot of people did like to work with Microsoft, actually. The reps, like at trade shows and stuff, like different districts. I didn't hear much sketchiness around them. So that's a good point of order to bring up. That maybe perhaps my fear is not unwarranted, but hyper amplified, because I'm naturally fearful.
Let's see. I think that you actually bring up a good point. We've asked like 3 official questions and then just kept talking and leading
It's
into
good. It's
like the
enrolling.
topics of different questions.
Yeah.
And this is question 9 on our docket actually. But do you think that let's hybridize 9 and 10. Do you think that Microsoft will finally push into esports and support these platforms more for competitive gaming? And to that end, do you think that they'll focus their attention on supporting collegiate efforts that AB seem to start supporting again?
I'll go.
Yes, go Sam.
Yes. Microsoft, from what I've seen, I've worked with a couple of teachers here in San Diego who have had excellent conversations with Microsoft Store. They actually host tournaments for the high schools.
Oh
and
yeah, they
provided,
do.
yes,
I
yes,
remember.
they
They're
did.
not that
Yeah.
bad.
Here's the thing. They actually gave away goods too at Microsoft.
Okay.
They gave away coupons. They gave away certain things. They worked in the mall with other stores to give away coupons for other stores. They built a community. It's almost like that's how esports should be done. It's almost like how every other sports team does it. Oh my
Mm.
God. So I think that if Microsoft just doesn't take any sort of like crazy juice and just kind of goes back and gets the member berries and goes, remember the good old days when we had esports in our stores and we could sell more products
Yeah.
because people trusted us, and maybe put those big stores or put relocate the teams to the big stores like Mall of America or North Carolina or New York. Keep it in New York. Maybe keep Miami where they're at. Put LA where somewhere. Seattle's good. Move them around. Put Kansas City. Kansas City. Can I just put a little plug? I've never talked to anyone there. I think they're fantastic. Kansas City Pioneers have done a great job at doing a community effort and really
May I
worked
ask a
hard with
very
them.
quick question?
Yeah.
So Kansas City is in Missouri, right? We're not talking about
They
like
share a town. They actually share a border.
no, this makes
Kansas
it
City,
worse.
Missouri. They actually share. They're
Budapest.
actually one big city, but they
Oh
share a
God.
border. Like, it's amazing.
I'm just gonna nod and not think about the like map
Geography.
for that. And please continue before I spiral into like insanity.
There's an important last topic, so I'll wrap it up. Microsoft can do it. They will do
Yeah.
it. I think that at the end of the day, if they get the right people in there, and they I'll say this. I'll be controversial. There are people in the Blizzard camp that need to be removed. They are not good
That's
for
not
esports.
controversial. That's just objective fact.
At this point,
They
yeah.
have stopped. They have stopped the process forward, and people in the esports teams need to be relieved. Like the way 100 Thieves handled a lot of their social media, people got mad at them. They had 100 different people for social media, for TikTok to Instagram. Just consolidate, reduce the fat, cause a little bit of chaos, and let people just do their jobs when they're meant to do it. And that's it. I think Microsoft has the possibility of doing it. Collegiate can happen if they just put the teams where they need to be and support them and create an environment that's happy and healthy. I rest my case on that.
That's a
Just
really
be human, corporations. Just be human. You know, it's easy.
yeah. That's a lot to ask them.
Bring the
that's
humanity back. Like it doesn't have to be all of the humanity, just
Yeah,
enough to, you know,
Easy wins.
pass. Just
I think you bring up a great point about like reminding kind of that Microsoft what access they have to more, I don't know, like channels to like to create more legitimacy and exposure for proper esports. Like if you're walking in the Microsoft store at a mall, and I remember we with Catherine with the tournament, like there was a League of Legends tournament, and it was actually a great facility. Everyone was a delight to work with. They went to our event at OC Fair. Okay, I'm getting less angry. But I think what that brings up is that's an interesting point that they have this access point in very communal spaces. And if there is to be a change that would move in the right direction, especially emphasizing being in the community, at least there are more access point partners that these teams and these organizations can work with that are directly in a community because you actually have physical locations. So I think that if they were smart, that they would utilize their entire network, like being able to use the whole thing. Who knows how consolidated the efforts are going to be? I remember when I was the only esports guy in a big tech company, it's not easy to get people to agree that your stuff is worthwhile. That's just like life. Like you have to fight tooth or nail that your marketing budget is going to esports stuff because you have to justify it, right? And that's what it's supposed to be, right? But a lot of people just go like, so we'll see if the voice of the esports directorship and the management that it not even just after or before the merger, like who's at Microsoft now that is really trying to dissect and work through this problem. We'll see how they respond and what they use and how much big Microsoft actually listens to someone that's in this vertical, that's in this silo right now. I am super curious to find out who is going to be. I'm gonna sit. I'm like Saruman from Lord of the Rings. I send out my ravens and I ask really leading questions to a lot of people, and then I come back in like 2 or 3 months, and then I have conversations with them, and I piece together what's happening in the industry, and I get names. So I will try to figure out, and whether it's legal for me to find out who is actually gonna be. I think it's legal for me to find out. I'm not sure if it's legal for me to share.
I feel like that'll be public information if they want to maintain that era of like,
It should be.
We're a good company. We are transparent.
Yeah.
We care about the people.
I'm going to have faith. I'm going to have hope, but I will try to find out because this is interesting to me, like to all of us, and because we just talked about the ramifications that are so real. I will do my little finding out thing. Yeah, I just do this because it's how I find it. You can never ask someone a question, like ask them. No one's gonna give you an answer like of explicit information. But if you pepper little questions around something, you can eventually find out who was in the room. That's what I do.
As at some point before we come back for some segment of some week, I just need to see a picture of you at your wall with like just different like things just everywhere, just like with different strings.
Oh my God,
we can use for like a promo image someday.
What's behind the screen? Nobody knows, but you're pretty much right. You're pretty much on the nose. There's just yarn behind me. And it's just like Pepe Frog face and then like owl. That's all it says. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
All
I don't
right.
know. I don't know what that tangent was, but it felt right at the moment.
Let's
It
see.
was
I
great.
think we have enough time for one more question, unless anyone wanted to wrap up on the Microsoft plus esports question. All right. In that case, this actually isn't on our list, but just that we can end on a nice, lovely, hopeful note.
Okay.
If you could have one of your like wishes or wildest dreams in terms of the Activision Blizzard King, also known as Activision Blizzard, kinda, and Microsoft be known or have come true, what would it be? You get one wish for the merger. What is it? Actually, no, let me rephrase it. You get two wishes. One that's like company, and then one that's just like completely unrealistic. What are your
Okay,
two
okay.
wishes?
Like a realistic, please. And
Like
then
this
there's
is a
like a
thing that I could see happen that I would really want to happen, and I'm gonna use my wish to make it happen. And then I want your other thing to be like, I want them to bring back like all the Diablos ever, forever, and then we have like Diablo 7 out by like 2025. Do it. I don't know anything about Diablo. I just pulled that name out.
very good. Oh, that's a really the only thing that comes to mind in terms of like I don't know if this is even a realistic wish, but show me who the heart of your company is that is leading this esports initiative. If you are hiding this entire initiative by a nameless, faceless program in the title of esports director, yeah, congratulations. You're not going to get anyone behind your side. You need to give us someone a face to the brand that we go, do I trust you? Like, for instance, when there are big game developers, big games that have developers in lead, and they're like the lead champion designer. Like, I happen to be I really lucky to have seen someone go through this process from like work their way through it, right? When there's a face to it, there's a personality. There's something that if that person represents the company and represents the ideals of the company, people will believe you. A point of contact. Yes, could we be bamboozled? Yes, but it's going to be really hard to fake inauthenticity in esports. We've said this once, like every show. We can smell it. We can smell inauthenticity. I hope my dream is that they show us the person and the person that is personally leading this charge. Because if it is a executive summary on a corporate initiative with a $4.7 million budget with an acquisition and target like blah 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 for the next 4 years, I'm not gonna trust this. There's no heart and soul. That's mechanics. Like I would love for them to say so it's like this. We've chosen someone in the community. This is your press secretary. That will give me hope because that means that at least maybe they're gonna maintain some transparency, and that's gonna give us an understanding of what type of what that ideology is at Microsoft. Because I don't know. All I have is my own personal efforts of working with esports and big tech, and it's tough. And I would like to see that someone is supported and uplifted and given the tools to make positive change in the industry that they love. Honestly, hi Microsoft if you're hiring, but also but most importantly, I think if it doesn't do that, if there isn't like that, then we don't have anything else to talk about. It's going to be a big money move. We're going to talk about the ramifications and how this whale moved through the ocean and how we're wading through the eddies. Or we can say, I know that whale. That person was cool. Like that person actually helped me out. Like that person has a good idea. That's the difference between being attacked by Moby Dick and going whale watching. You know?
Look, there's a
Well,
Pinocchio reference in here somewhere since you just came out on Netflix. But it
I,
was great, by the
I'll,
way. Masterpiece. Definitely watch it. Sam, to you.
no, I completely agree. I think I'll go one step further, and I would say I'd 100% nominate if it was up to me. Here's my wish: bring back some of the old staff that really. And there's one staff that has been a mentor to me, Packing. He used to be the head of Valiant, or I guess that's Immortals. Bring him to do the industry. If not, DX is the next best person that I know. Sorry, DX.
No,
Packing is near
fair.
and dear to my heart.
I
Uh,
appreciate you. I will take a silver.
but bring in Packing. There's a couple of other individuals that I think I've mentioned. I won't go by name, but they understand the industry and they understand how this works, and they love and respect the industry to the point where they won't overspend Microsoft's money. They won't bring in people that are unnecessary. They will cull the fat when they need to. And at the end of the day, it's about the love of the game. It's not
Yeah.
it's not using and abusing, which I think is such a big part of everything, which I hope we do get to like spend a couple minutes. I think that what we've done in our industry is what we're kind of seeing happen. What happened in the NFL on Monday. Um,
Mm.
we we saw a
Mm.
player go down, and the NFL could not make a decision. He was, for all intents and purposes, if people don't understand what happened, he went down, got hit. He had his heart stopped. He was dead on the field, and the only thing that let him live was the fact that there were people there supporting him. There was infrastructure already there, and stuff was in place to keep him alive for the 10 minutes that was happening there, and they were able to transport him to the hospital. Um,
Mm.
we we have a bad industry. Industry has all of its bad shit that happens. Um, I don't want Microsoft. This sounds like really petty and maybe not in good taste, but it there are a lot of people's lives on the line when it comes to this. Um, and we're seeing the physical manifestation of a person almost dying for their sport, that we watch on for. And there's plenty of gamers that have passed away,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and we don't want that to happen if there is the industry continues to be bad. We don't want to be the NFL. We don't want to be in a situation where we're kind of juggling BS around. I think it's important to take responsibility and say, hey, we can make a bigger change. We'll be the bigger person. We'll make something better so the next person doesn't have to deal with it. Because it was definitely hard on me to see someone who was a gladiator and almost die for a sport, for a
Yeah.
game. And that's something that I don't want Microsoft to kind of play around with, because there are a lot of people's livelihoods on the line. We just passed through the highest. Let me be blunt. We just passed through some of the highest rate of like month for suicides,
Yeah.
and money issues are big. We mentioned that $80,000 a year is not sustainable in LA or San Diego or anywhere in California. If you're going through a tough time, please reach out to someone, get it taken care of, please. But we're in this weird infrastructure in esports where we just don't get that contact. We don't get that support because we're afraid to talk about money. We're afraid to
Yeah.
say 80,000 isn't enough in this industry. Please, if we could kind of like do better, that's important. So
Mm.
I don't want to take too much more time, but that's important to me.
Yeah, and I think though too is we look at legacies of industries because people that are involved in this know that when they're in it, they wish they could have said something and uplifted and changed the environment. I think that's what we have the opportunity to do. You know, I think we have the opportunity to listen to what we've learned and we've see industries and they're learning from the people who've been through it. Like I'll just widely note, like part of this stream is sponsored by the NFL alumni, and it's not that we hate that stuff. Like we're sports fans, but you can be critical of an industry and love it and hope for it to change and hope for it to grow. And we have to be able to listen to the people who've been through this before and say, what would you have changed if you could do it again? If you could, if you're like, especially talking to NFL alums, like how would you have affected change in your university and your high school through recruitment methods? We have the opportunity, and especially at connections and places like esports, college and career pathways, where we can maybe open up those conversations. We can bring the alumni and say, they didn't want this for their industry and we're building this industry right now, so let's take the next best thing that is an analog, a professional sports organization that has hopes and dreams that can still be fostered and grown, because we're at that point right now. And I really think that's important to bring up. Like no one wanted to no one would have ever, like, that's traumatic for a lot of people and it's really difficult to see. And I know, speaking of, like, if you're in the industry, watching someone in your industry go through something like that, it's so hard. So I think this is hopefully a really good wake up point to look at all the people that are participating, and we have our gripes and we have our things, but most importantly, if we're really going to do this, we're really doing this, we all need to come together and share these realistic being very honest about what happened and being how do we pay it forward? How do we, knowing what we know, seeing what we've seen, taking opinions and from people who've been in industries and that are adjacent, taking new voices. If that conversation does not happen, then then it's just some stuff like this becomes too easy to dismiss. it becomes too easy to forget about because there's so many other things. If we're not protecting each other in this manner, at the bare minimum of protecting people's lives, then what industry do we have?
Yeah, and I definitely want to put an emphasis, if you don't mind. I want to just make sure I'm making my statement clear that the people who are in the industry, like the NFL alumni, the people that support us, they've gone through it. They're
Yeah.
going through it. They understand it. They've gone through 10, 20, 30 years of this, whether or not they've been physically there for 30 years in the game, but they've been helping build that up.
Yeah.
The NFL, you can be critical of a company, but I don't think you can be completely critical of someone who's been through the whole thing
Yeah.
and shut down their conversation because you disagree with what they have to say because it changes your bottom line.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big step forward. Hopefully for everyone in every industry, we can have those open conversations so we don't have traumatic events happen within it.
Yeah, that's big.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your very hopeful goals for what we see come from the Microsoft ABK merger. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping things up here, but before we end for the night, we are going to touch on Damar Hamlin. For those of you who weren't aware, Hamlin's heart stopped after taking a hit from another player during a game. This was for 10 minutes, and emergency medical kept him breathing to allow for transport to the hospital after this fact. First off, we want to extend blessings to Damar Hamlin and their family at this time. We cannot imagine what you're going through, but we want to make sure that you know the people out here supporting you and sending all of their best wishes and healing energy to Damar right now. We hope that they make a recovery and are able to get the rest that they need to not only be able to continue to live their life to the fullest, but also to be able to continue to spend time with their family and loved ones. We also want to thank you, those who were part of the medical personnel who were able to step in and do what needed to be done that day. Thank you so much, especially after dealing with such a stressful year during the pandemic and more. Medical personnel are probably the only thing standing between not only what happened to this event, but the rest of us between like awful, terrible things. So thank you so much for those of you who were on the field that day who stepped in and did what needed to be done. A lot of times we don't talk about dangerous things that players face because we view a lot of games as just games, but we tend to forget the most important thing of all is that there are people behind the scenes who are not only the people who are playing in these matches and games and tournaments and everything to provide us with an entertaining experience, but that also these are people who need to be, taken into account when it comes to their health and well-being. Pros, they give us so much to perform, which results in things like concussion, broken bones, changes in how their brain functions, and even possibly death. So, going forward into this new year, we want to place a special emphasis on being aware of these dangers that they face, making sure that we as players are knowledgeable about these facts, and that we help push for them to have not only the support they need in terms of health and medical benefits, and being able to do what we can as people who are their fans and their supporters to make sure that the industry that they're in is safe and has their best interests at heart. I think after what happened, we need to make this, something to really keep in mind going into 2023. And as traumatic and awful and terrible as this event was, I think that this has opened a lot of people's eyes that this is something that needs to happen if we want to make sure that it does not happen again. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I want to extend a thank you to DX and Sam for joining me tonight. We enjoyed having you on stream and for supporting us as well. We also want to extend a huge thank you to our partners, ESTV, the NFL alumni, and the Game Hers. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to do our weekly show. We want to thank our producer, Nick, figure gun Nick, who is here but not on camera and doing this just because I can, because it's awkward and I love doing that. As well as Catherine and Bayou, who are our moderators. To stay up to date on our upcoming topics that we're working on next, be sure to follow us on social media as well as here on Twitch. You can find us everywhere as Esports CCP. Next Friday, we're going to have an amazing guest join us, Chris Goodman, who just signed with Las Vegas Inferno Esports Madden team. As someone who knows nothing about Madden, or that's soccer. Sorry, I legitimately don't know.
Close.
Close. Sometimes the
There's a
name is
ball
mixed
involved,
up.
right?
Football, soccer, it gets
Yeah.
all muddly depending on where you're from.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Nick. We were doing so well.
We got the producer groan. We got the groan.
Oh no.
Sorry, let me just wrap up before I embarrass Esports CCP and get technically fired, even though, yeah. But thank you so much. We look forward to having Chris Goodman as our guest. I will learn what Madden is before then, I promise. I will be so knowledgeable about Madden. I'll know
So
that
bad.
this is important and which one it is by next week. But before then, I want to say good night to everybody and totally wrap up in a professional way that will not cause any further humiliation. So let's send our well wishes to everyone who was a guest tonight. Thank you so much. We want to extend our healing energy and good energy to Damar Hamlin and his family right now. We wish you a speedy recovery and that you're able to get all the support that you need. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay warm and happy 2023. Good
Happy
night, everyone.
2023.
Thank you.